So here's a question for you. Do you believe that we are living longer? Do you believe that people today are living longer than people of 10 years ago, or of 30 years ago, or of 50 years ago, or 100 years ago? Do you believe that people are living longer? It might seem like a silly question. Had you asked me this question even 5 years ago, I would have said, well, of course we're living longer. Everybody knows we're living longer. That's what I would have said. And that is certainly what I think most people believe. I ask people this question, I don't want to say all the time, but I've asked quite a few people, just regular people, and they say, yeah, of course we're living longer. Of course we are. It's like, it's not even something you question. Of course we're living longer. We all know that we're living longer than people in the past. We all know that. Everyone knows that. That's why we always say it. That's why the TV always says it. That's why newspapers always say it. We all know that we're living longer. As you guys know, I am leaving YouTube behind very shortly, in the next few days in fact. So what I've been doing lately is just sharing some of the major turning points for myself in the time that I've spent here since I first got into all of this, and I thought that Boston and the Sydney siege and these kinds of things, I thought they were major events worth my attention. The different steps along the way that have led me to have a different perspective on not just on life, but especially on this YouTube scene and what value it offers or does not offer. I want to share with you an article in a newspaper that I saw just today. I was at a cafe and they had the Courier Mail in there. The Courier Mail is the only newspaper in Brisbane. For those of you who don't know much about Australia, our cities, Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney anyhow, they're huge cities, okay? They're not little outback towns like you might think in Crocodile Dundee. We live in major cities, and somehow we've only got one newspaper here in Brisbane. It's incredible. It's an Uncle Rupert newspaper, of course, but none of that matters. What matters is that our federal government has raised the retirement age from 65. They then moved it up to 67 or 68, and now it's going up to 70. So by the time people my age get to retirement age, it'll be 70. And it could be more again by then, but even just 70. Now, putting aside questions of welfare and should the government give people money, putting all of that aside, the average person today does believe that if they work and pay their taxes, they deserve to retire and get a pension when they retire. And if we look at movies like Animal Farm or books like George Orwell's Animal Farm, we know that the animals are told if they work really hard and get the farm built and it's run by the animals and everyone's happy, then when they get to retirement age, they'll get put out to pasture and they'll get to enjoy their old age. But we're seeing right now in the real world that people's retirement ages, and this is happening in Australia, but I'd be surprised if this were not happening in your country as well, the retirement age is going up and quickly going up. And what's their justification? Well, take a look at this. As we live longer and are healthier, it's reasonable to expect more people will want to remain active through work. So Minister Christian Porter, the Minister for Social Services, says, well, we have to increase the retirement age because people are living longer. He said Australians were healthier and living longer than ever before, and the government needed to ensure the pension system was sustainable. So they're using this as justification for increasing the retirement age. And again, regardless of what you think about the pension, most of the people you're surrounded by have it in the back of their mind that they deserve to, if they're paying their taxes, get a retirement pension. They're also being told that they're going to be older by the time they get that pension, and they're being told the reason is because they're living longer. So this is a very important topic, and when I spent several hours poring through the data myself, actually looking at the primary source data on this topic, trying to find the evidence, the proof that people are actually living longer, it blew my mind. Blew my mind. So I wrote an article about it, and you might wonder why George Clooney is in the banner of my website. I've got all these things, from the baby hoaxes that you're familiar with, and then you've got the moon landings in there on the top left, and you've got Donald Trump. That was from before he was elected. Then I've got him right next to the Trump, the Trump Tower, the Back to the Future Biff Tannen Tower, and a lot of those things in that banner you'll be familiar with. But why did I put George Clooney in there? Why did I put George Clooney from ER in there? Well, there's a reason. And that's all I have to say about that for now. There is so much more going on in the world than the baby hoaxes or the shape of the earth. Important things that affect us every day. There are deceptions that affect us and everyone we care about every day. And they're deceptions that are built upon lies that we're told from a very young age. Things that no one questions. Even in the so-called truth scene, nobody questions. And when it started to dawn on me just how far this goes, and how very few people in this entire scene could even countenance what's being talked about, let alone do their own research, I realized I'm mixing with people who, no matter how well their intent might be, no matter how good their intent might be, these people want to be distracted by titillating stories of ancient trees and MK Ultra programs and pedophilia rings, and what they want is titillation. What they don't want is real information, and what they don't want is genuine questions that make them reflect on their own lives, because we are drinking and eating ourselves to death every day, and so are the people around us who we care about and who we love. And they think they're going to live longer. But if you look into the evidence for yourself, you're going to see that's not the case. I've loved my time here on YouTube, and to those of you who have sent me private messages and emails to say that you like the work that I've done and that I've helped you, all of that feedback means the world to me. I'm leaving with high hopes and much optimism and a lot of thanks. I couldn't be more thankful for my time here, and I'm not really going anywhere. I've still got my website. I'll still be posting members updates and articles and videos there just like I have been, so none of that changes. But I need to get away from YouTube because we need to, as people, work out what we're about and what we value and what we're trying to achieve, and where possible, get away from people who have the opposite interests. And the sad reality is that in the so-called truth movement, there's very few people who are really here for the right reasons, insofar as I see what is right and wrong. So on the 3rd of September 2017, leave your comments in the info box below. Of course, the comments do have to be approved before they show up, so trolls, take it elsewhere, you're wasting our time. But if you have good information on this topic and you have something to share, please do. Let's get the conversation going and see where it takes us. That's it for today. So until next time, you guys take care of yourselves.